have to hit the mineral deal with you. I mean, you're an economist. You've been doing this since, at the very least, 1996. Um, Give me your take on that. I mean, Donald Trump said he was going to end the war in 24 hours. I don't think anybody believed it. We are 100 days in at this point. In fact, we're beyond 100 days. And he signs a mineral deal that gets him more ensconced in Ukraine, not less, which on some way implies a breakdown of the negotiations, if you want to call it that were taking place between the United States and Russia. I mean, after all, the mineral deal effectively allows them to get stuff, weapons. In fact, he just released $50 million. Again, it's not a huge amount of money, but it's the fact that he released it at all, while he is also saying that he wants to somehow come to some kind of deal and some kind of terms in the war. I think Trump doesn't quite get that the loser doesn't get to dictate terms, and he can't eat crow, meaning he keeps trying to say this is Joe Biden's war, missing the fact that it was America that was fighting this war, not Joe Biden by himself. Give me your take on the mineral deal, though. I mean, is this as bad for Ukraine as some people are saying it is? I mean, it's supposed to go on for perpetuity. It's 50-50, supposedly. It's not a mineral deal. It's effectively everything that comes out of the ground: oil, gas, minerals like copper, rare earth, etc. But give me your take on it.
This whole mineral deal is such a boondoggle that I have a hard time with it. You know, I can't buy the official narrative even at all. There's something else going on, you know. My understanding, and I think we don't have the full details yet. I think the whole deal has not been made public yet. We have some information about it, but one of the things that I understood is that the deal doesn't include U.S. security guarantee. So the United States, Trump got that deal, but without pledging security guarantee for Kiev. So what does that mean? It means that ultimately this deal might be at the mercy of the Russians. You know, so there is the possibility that maybe in the backroom discussions, the Russians said, "Fine, look, we're going to honor this deal. You make that deal with Zelensky, we're going to honor it." But already the fact that Trump signed this deal with Zelensky is very highly problematic, because Zelensky is not legitimately the president of Ukraine anymore since last May. And even though the Verkhovna Rada in Kiev voted on a decree to extend Zelensky's presidential mandate, that is still unconstitutional, because the Ukraine's constitution is very clear on this point, that the presidential mandate is 5 years, not a day longer. Elections cannot be delayed for any reason. War, emergency, whatever it is, that's in the constitution. So whatever the lawmakers voted on under pressure, because they had to vote twice on it. First time they voted wrong, and they didn't extend the presidential mandate until Boris Johnson once more landed in Kiev, and then I expect that somehow pressure was exerted on the naysayers, and then they voted it. But it's still an unconstitutional decree. So what that implies is that if some future government in Kiev doesn't want to honor the deal, they would be legally justified to tear it up and to say, "You signed this with a private citizen. He was not legitimately the president of Ukraine, so therefore your deal is null and void as far as we're concerned." This is the whole aspect of the deal problem, which necessitates U.S. security guarantee, meaning that the United States will defend the regime in Kiev that will honor all these deals with the US, with the UK, with France, whatever they have there. But if the United States decline to provide this security guarantee, that tells me that there must be a backroom deal with the Russians, who probably told Trump, fine, look, if you sign some kind of a deal with Ukraine for Ukraine's resources, this and that, mineral rights, we'll honor it. You can have that. So that's, for Russia, that's a way to pacify the situation, to avert the risk of war between the United States and Russia, which could turn into a nuclear Armageddon, and to draw the United States into its orbit as a partner, so that the United States has a stake in having good relations with Russia. So that makes sense to me, but I'm guessing about this. We don't know yet. Just to finish, just before this deal was signed, Trump was saying that the Kiev government is about to collapse, that this is imminent. So he knew this, or at least he thought this. So the fact that he signed this deal tells me again that the deal is something else. There's a whole complexity of elements, moving concerns that are informing all these things. And I think that the real deal is actually between the United States and Russia.
That has crossed my mind. But Donald Trump, when the peace deal, or the peace, quote unquote, peace plan that Donald Trump put forward was never going to be accepted. And I kept thinking to myself, okay, is Donald Trump doing this in order to give license to walk? I couldn't figure out, either he just doesn't fundamentally understand the Russian point of view, that this is existential. The entire population, for the most part, is behind Putin on this. You're on their borders, and they're trying to settle this for the foreseeable future, not create this kind of frozen conflict. But it seems that the U.S. wants a frozen conflict with this notion of coming back to this later with a new president or somebody else that can reinvigorate, after the blood and treasure that Russia put into it. At least that's the way I saw it. Like you said, it's hard to see it because there's no way to know the actual conversations that may be taking place behind the scenes that we're just completely unaware of. But on a shallow level, it seems that he's gotten more ensconced in Ukraine, not less. And it seems that the security guarantees that they are referring to, well, they are none, but it's almost like the business relationship creates an implicit rationale for the U.S. to give them weapons, to give them defensive articles. And to make it even worse, using the deal, it's like if the U.S. gives weapons or sells them something, they can say, okay, now this is folded within the deal, that this is money that the U.S. is effectively putting in because they're putting in weapons. Like, it's very strange in the way that this is being done, especially since none of this stuff really is going to come to fruition for 10 to 15 years, if they're lucky. It's just very strange.
Yes, I entirely agree with you. I mean, everything you said makes complete and total sense, which is why I think there must be a different explanation for everything, because, the need for the security is essential unless the Russians already agreed to it, unless the Russians, or maybe Trump, without the Russians, has the plan of saying, hey guys, we got this deal with Ukraine. Now we want you to honor it if we're going to be friends and maybe he wants to kind of impose that on Russia, and the Russians haven't said yes yet. But right. I can see rationale for why the Russians might say yes. Maybe renegotiate some of the deal, maybe put it to a legislative process to give the Ukrainian people a chance to vote on it, to see what their benefit is. What they, Ukrainian people are educated people. They're not how do you call it? Native tribes there, and so they probably don't want their country to turn into a de facto colony of the United States. So, maybe Trump signed himself a deal to give himself a negotiating position to ultimately still extract some benefit for U.S. interests in Ukraine. But that kind of makes sense. The notion that he's now switching from pivoting to Russia to pivoting back to European powers and working together with France and Britain, that doesn't make any sense at all to me, because that would imply that he will ultimately be liable for Ukraine's security, which could be incalculable in terms of costs and risks. Then you have to really indefinitely arm Ukraine, supply them with military technology, with troops, with advisors, with trainers, whatever, and you take the risk of a total war against Russia, which both sides would lose, and then everything that you've been negotiating for goes to zero.
Yeah. I heard you in an interview having a conversation. I was in preparation for this. I was looking at some of your other interviews, and I saw you talking about Iran. And last night, all hell broke loose. Like effectively the negotiations fell apart. Iran is trying to put a lipstick on a pig. The foreign minister for Iran comes out, gives a very political face-saving mechanism, saying, tonight with Omani and U.S. interlocutors, we have decided to postpone the fourth round of talks for logistical and technical reasons, blah, 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 blah. We remain wanting to have a deal. We vigorously want one, and we will get back to negotiations when we can. Now, the truth of it is what Reuters put out, where Reuters said this, that a source familiar with the matter told Reuters that the United States had never confirmed participation in a fourth round of talks in Rome, meaning the U.S. had never even come to terms to say, yes, we will be in the next round of talks. Because if you remember, this third round of talks, which were supposed to be technical, didn't necessarily go all that well. The U.S. started to take a maximalist demand on this issue of the Libyan option, getting rid of all enrichment. That was always a red line for Iran. Iran said that was a red line from the very beginning. This is not something we're going to tolerate. We are a sovereign country. We shouldn't even be having these negotiations in the first place. You're threatening us. But in order to avoid a war, we would have these negotiations. We want to get rid of sanctions. Fair enough. You get a drunken tweet by Hegseth, just losing his. I imagine the bottle in his hand as the tweet was being written. Message to Iran: we see your lethal support for the Houthis. We know exactly what you are doing. You know very well that what the U.S. military is capable of, and you were warned. You will pay the consequence, capital letters, at the time and place of our choosing. Okay, it sounds like Hegseth is deciding to go to war all on its own, all by himself, without any act of Congress, without anything. It's just him going to war. And if you notice, Witkoff, supposedly the realist, retweeted that and shared that tweet. Now, Trump comes out and says effectively he's passing an embargo on anybody that accepts oil from Iran, so China and pretty much any other nation, which China is going to say, F off. I can't imagine China is going to accept that. That is pretty astonishing to me. And there's a question. I mean, I got to be honest, I've been somewhat cynical, hopeful, but cynical on these negotiations, because I've seen, Wesley Clark pointing out all of these nations were going to get taken out. All of these nations have been taken out. Iran is the last man standing. And to be fair, this is not the same Iran that was there when Donald Trump was in office the first time around. By the same token, Trump has boxed himself in to this rhetoric of we're going to bomb you, we're going to bomb you, we're going to bomb you if we can't get a deal. And it seems that the negotiations have effectively hit a snag. What are your thoughts on this? Do you accept my cynicism as being legit in this, if that makes sense? Or do you think this is gamesmanship? Donald Trump wouldn't be crazy enough to actually attack Iran, especially since it is unpredictable consequences in regards to Iran's capability. They couldn't pacify the Houthis, which is why Hegseth was pissed off. He's humiliated by not being able to pacify the Houthis. There's a report from the New York Times that the U.S. was not able to get air superiority over the Houthis, which is just amazing to me. We spend $1 trillion on our military. What is your take on this? Is this gamesmanship? Is Donald Trump escalating threats with the idea of trying to get something more out of the deal, or people of policy and the lunatics and whack jobs that Donald Trump have around him may convince him to actually attack. What are your thoughts?
I think that you're right to be skeptical about this, but I would point out two things. First of all, I wouldn't trust Reuters as far as I could throw them. Reuters at this point is it's always been a psyop operation, largely on every issue that matters. When they cite individuals familiar with the events, who are they talking about? I can tell you 100% they never asked me, for example. and so it's a psyop, because the buildup of pressure to take action against Iran is now very fierce and relentless. And to my mind, it explains Trump's war on the Houthis, because when this started on 15th March, I was taken aback. This action against Houthis is so unreasonable, so profoundly stupid and idiotic, that
We lost him. He'll be back, I would imagine. There we are.
I'm sorry, Jamal, I don't know what happened.
It's okay. You're back. I can totally honest. He will be back.
Tossed me out without even a kind word.
No worries.
Okay, and so it was so idiotic that I thought, okay, so either these people are complete clowns and have no idea what they're doing, or they're doing it for some other reason. And so I was guessing that maybe it was a blow to Europe, because it interrupted the Red Sea commercial traffic, the bulk of which is Europe's trade. But on the other hand, that's not really a fatal blow, because there's another route. They can go around the Cape of Good Hope. Takes longer, it costs more, but trade continues. Okay, so, but then when Pete Hegseth voted against attacking Iran, we saw a very hysterical reaction on the part of the war hawks in the United States against him. So, it tells you that the pressure for war on Iran has now built up to hysterical levels. And so I wonder if them launching a war against Houthis is a way for them to avoid taking the war to Iran, and to appear to be doing something really, really tough and decisive in support of Israel. And so all this rhetoric now seems to be more of the same, only it's gradually escalating. But, given how well they've done against the Taliban in Afghanistan not so long ago, given how well they're doing in their war on Houthis, I can't imagine that they will pull the trigger and go to war against Iran, because it would be catastrophic for the United States. And it would be catastrophic for Israel as well. So if I believe that the administration is well informed and rational about this issue, I think a way to go, what I would try to do if I were in their place, I would say this: look, Israel's a mess. Netanyahu is on his way out one way or another. He's falling apart. Israel is falling apart. If we wait them out, the situation might diffuse itself in time. And so let's go drop bombs somewhere. Let's go talk tough. Let's be all like, do this song and dance for everybody to see, because a lot of these statements are for public consumption. That it's not directed to Iran. It's directed at the domestic war hawks. And hopefully the situation will somehow diffuse itself, or somehow, we see that Israel's a mess. And that way, maybe, we get a chance to effect reforms in Israel and be a helpful partner and ally without having to take the risk of war against Iran, which would be devastating. It would end with thousands of U.S. sailors in the bottom of the sea, in the Persian Gulf or in the Red Sea. It would be, they have between 50 and 60,000 troops in about 20 military bases around the Middle East, all of which are within the reach of Iranian missiles. And Israel would get a barrage of missiles, to use Trump's word, like nobody's ever seen before. And so that's the risk. And what's the upside? A long shot chance of killing the leaders of Iran and getting somehow a regime change there, and then bring the Shah, and then everybody lives happily ever after. Very, very highly unlikely scenario. So you would be choosing something that's unlikely to succeed, along with the certainty that you get a really bloody nose and probably lose your influence in the region for good, irreversibly. So that's how I make sense out of it. I don't know if I'm right. Time will tell. But it seems to me that they are trying to do what they can to avoid going to war against Iran.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, thing is, neocons are ideologues.
Yes.
And, reality doesn't always.
They're ideologues and they're fanatical zealots,
Yeah.
which makes them extremely dangerous, but they're also a very small bunch of people.
Mm-hmm.
They have powerful funding, so this is where you might be able to attack them, but I don't see very many people talking about that aspect of it.
Alex, man, thank you for this. I really do appreciate it. I always enjoy it. We have a great crowd. I think we have 700 people here watching. They
Wonderful.
Definitely appreciate you joining us.
Excellent. So thank you to everyone who has joined. Thank you for the invite, and until the next time, Jamar.
Absolutely, man. Thank you for this. Alex Krainer. He's founder of Krainer Analytics, creator of iSystem Trend Following. He has worked as a market analyst, researcher, trader, and hedge fund manager since 1996. He has authored several books, including Mastering Uncertainty and Commodities Trading, The Grand Deception, and Alex Krainer's Following Trends. Alex, man, thank you for this. You be safe. Have a good one.
Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.